Mike. So good morning, everybody, and welcome to another exciting broadcast with us here at Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants. This is our first full week back this year. We've got 17 programs this week alone. For a lot of you, it's your very first time joining us, in which case, welcome to our broadcast. We are all about bringing conservation, adventure, and science into classrooms around the world. And this has been a wild journey this week. We've talked with volcanologists. We've talked with Paul Salopek walking around the world. We've talked with a bevy of polar scientists, but today is particularly exciting because today is World Rhino Day. So we are doing a trifecta of incredible broadcasts. My colleague Joe just wrapped up with Old Pejeta with the last two northern white rhinos live from the field. That was amazing. Later today, we head to the Toronto Zoo to hear from their rhino team and talk about all the amazing conservation work they do at the zoo. But right smack dab in the middle here at 10 Eastern, I am so excited to welcome in Martha Parker. She is going to talk about her recent expeditions to Indonesia to highlight Sumatran and Javan rhinoceros. Now, for a lot of our audience, our teachers, our students, you'll be familiar with the big African rhinos, sort of the iconic image of the Serengeti. We've got elephants, we've got leopards, we've got lions, we've got rhinos. This is totally different from that. These are some really, really cool, amazing species that are they're lesser known, shall we say, and I'm really excited for you to have the chance to meet them today. If you are keen on our other broadcasts, or if you want to watch this one in like 3 weeks or 3 years down the road, everything we do goes to our YouTube channel, so you can check it out there. I really encourage you to do so, and let us know where you're joining from on YouTube as well. But without further ado, I'm so excited to welcome in Martha. Come on into the broadcast. It's like we are going to talk about some really, really unique and special creatures today, and I can't wait.
Yes, thank you so much for having me, and happy World Rhino Day to everyone who's celebrating.
It's the best day ever. In fact, I'll make a little sub byline for myself where it says World Rhino Day. I should have had that to begin, but I'm going to stop talking because I could talk all day about how cool rhinos are, but you actually have the expertise. So if you want to roll right into that amazing program you've got for us, let's get underway.
Let's get started. Sure. Thank you again for having us, the International Rhino Foundation, here today to celebrate Javan and Sumatran rhinos on World Rhino Day. I'm Martha Parker. I'm the Director of Grants and Partnership Development for the International Rhino Foundation. And we're going to be talking about these two beautiful species that are in the background. And just want to say thank you to the Indonesia Ministry of Environment and Forestry, who provided many of these photos and information as well. So as you may know, throughout the world, there are 5 species of rhino. Each has their own unique conservation story and, of course, their challenges. We just released our annual State of the Rhino report, which you can see a summary of the 5 species here. It provides information on the conservation status and the population trend for each of the 5 rhino species. We have, a few beacons of hope. The black rhino and the greater one-horn rhino are increasing, which is fantastic. Today, we're going to focus on the 2 most critically endangered of all the rhino species, the Javan rhino and the Sumatran rhino. And with all 5 rhino species combined, there are just over 26,000 left in the world today. Unfortunately, and as you probably know, poaching is the largest threat to rhinos, followed by habitat loss and population fragmentation. And this has resulted in an 11% decline in the global rhino population over the last decade. So yes, there are challenges. We are working with so many different partners and organizations to do as much as we can to prevent these animals from going extinct, because they're pretty cool. So a little bit about where we work. The International Rhino Foundation has been managing and funding critical rhino conservation projects throughout Africa and Asia for the last 30 years. You can see on the map where our partners work, and we're focused on all 5 of the rhino species and their habitats. And we focus our work on sort of these overarching pillars, which include protection, population management, habitat management, connecting people for conservation action, community development, capacity building, demand reduction, advocacy, and trafficking disruption. And moving to Indonesia, where we'll focus today, we work to protect 2 of the most endangered mammals on the planet, the Sumatran and the Javan rhino. And these animals used to range throughout Southeast Asia. You can see the historical range outlined in those two colors. And then you can see the shaded in parts where the species are actually found now. So they used to have quite a bit of a range and all the way into India. And now they only exist in Indonesia. And between these two species, there are likely no more than 100 individuals left. So making sure that every single one remains protected is critical to the survival of these species. And of course, none of this work happens without just a huge amount of collaboration with many, many different partners. So we support Indonesia's Ministry of Environment and Forestry, their multifaceted conservation program. And that means we collaborate with local on-the-ground partners, which you can see here, the Indonesian Rhino Initiative, or IRI, Yayasan Bedak Indonesia, or YABI, Alert, the Forum Conservation Loser, and two national parks, Waikambas National Park on the island of Sumatra and Ujung Kulon National Park on the island of Java. And we're actually going to head to the island of Java now to talk about Javan rhinos. So again, they only exist in one country in the world, in Indonesia, and in fact, in only one national park, Ujung Kulon. 10 years ago, there were probably less than 50 Javan rhinos, and now the park estimates 76 individuals. But unfortunately, earlier this year, the Ministry of Environment and Forestry noted that 15 of the 76 individuals have not been identified on camera traps for at least 3 years. Recently, 3 of these individuals have been accounted for, which means there's still 12 that have not been accounted for. So it is not known whether these rhinos just have avoided detection by the camera traps, whether they've passed away naturally or been poached. Within the last year, the national park has found evidence of attempted poaching incursions, and their response has been really swift. They closed the park to visitors, they're increasing protection and monitoring efforts, they're adding new security systems, and IRF and our partners are really doing everything possible to make sure that this last remaining population of Javan rhinos is protected, because we know that when rhinos are protected and secure in a landscape and they have enough space and food, they really know how to breed and how to reproduce and take care of themselves. So we just have to give them the opportunity to do that. Here's a map of Ujung Kulon National Park, again, at the very tip of the island of Java. Indonesia has lots and lots of islands. Java is just one of them, but it's pretty much completely surrounded by water. So to protect Javan rhinos in the park, we have both marine and terrestrial rhino protection units. These protection units patrol the park continuously. They monitor rhinos and other wildlife. They remove traps and snares, and they apprehend poachers and encroachers. And you can see here, this is one of the boats that's used for the Marine Protection Unit to go around the park and monitor for illegal activity. Our partner Yabi operates 2 of these Marine Protection Units. They rotate patrolling for 20 days at a time. The terrestrial patrol units, there are 5 of them, and they spend about 15 days out in the forest, camping, spending all of their time looking for and protecting rhinos. They use SMART technology, which stands for Spatial Monitoring and Reporting Tool, and that assists with monitoring and making patrolling more effective. And you can see here, there is a Javan rhino in a wallow, which is pretty amazing footage that we don't get to see often. But in addition to our protection efforts, we also fund the park's camera trap monitoring program, which is managed by our local partners, Alert. So by putting out camera traps, we can place them in strategic areas that can take amazing videos like this one and photos of a very elusive or secretive species, the Javan rhino. And that way we can count the individuals and monitor the population over time without disrupting the animals. Now moving into Sumatra, the Sumatran rhinos, again, are only found in one country, in Indonesia. And the Asian Rhino Specialist Group reports that there may be 4 isolated populations, but as many as 10 subpopulations of Sumatran rhino left in the world. And they are found on Sumatra, but they're also found in Borneo, which is an island, and Indonesia has a piece of the island where there are a few Sumatran rhinos as well. Only one of the wild populations in northern Sumatra, called Loser, is believed to have enough individuals to be viable. And this is a really reclusive species as well. They really can disappear into the dense jungles. Direct sightings have become really rare, and footprints are harder to find. The government of Indonesia thinks that there are no more than 80 Sumatran rhinos in total, while the Asian Rhino Specialist Group specifies that the actual count could be between 34 and 47 individuals. We haven't found any evidence of Sumatran rhino poaching for over a decade, but there also haven't been any naturally occurring carcasses either. So it makes this species disappearance even more of a mystery. The beacon of hope for this species is the breeding program, which I'll talk about at the Sumatran Rhino Sanctuary, a protected semi-wild facility in Sumatra that's produced 3 calves and continues to breed the Sumatran rhinos to create an insurance population. What we do to help protect Sumatran rhinos is we support the wildlife protection teams in the Loser ecosystem in northern Sumatra. These teams patrol, just like the rhino protection units, for an average of 15 days per month. And they're made up of 4 highly skilled FKL rangers and 1 government ranger from the Integrated Forest Management Unit. Across the entire Loser ecosystem, FKL has 38 wildlife protection teams to protect all of the animals and monitor illegal activities. And on the left, you can see a photo of a very impressive photo of a Sumatran rhino in a wallow that one of the wildlife protection teams actually took themselves in May of this year. So not from a camera trap, but from one of the teams out on patrol, which is a really amazing occurrence. Through their patrol missions, the teams observed lots of wildlife, 476 indications of Sumatran rhinos, 16 indications of Sumatran elephants, 881 indications of Sumatran tigers, and 599 indications of Sumatran orangutans. So some pretty amazing wildlife in this area. Just like in Ujung Kulon National Park and Waikambas National Park, to protect Sumatran rhinos, we also have rhino protection units. There are 13 that are operated by our partners at Yabi. And we also fund an intelligence and law enforcement program in the park, which includes the formation of an information gathering team. And we're also working with the park and other NGOs to really create this very comprehensive protection system with cameras and a rapid reaction team to be able to proactively respond to any incursions and really make sure that these Sumatran rhinos are safe. Another program that we support for Sumatran rhinos is the reforestation program. So Waikambas National Park is the only protected area in Indonesia with no buffer zone. Villages surround the park on all sides. And unfortunately, some human settlements have encroached into the park, which then competes with rhinos and other wildlife for that habitat. In late 2018, the National Park, IRF, Yabi began a pilot project to restore degraded habitat and reforest it with rhino and elephant food plants. Rainforest species grow really quickly. So within 4 to 5 years, the replanted forest, which is now actually, the replanted forest can support and provide food for all of these animals. And rhinos are really good at finding and taking advantage of new habitats. The reforestation efforts are now managed by our partners at the Indonesian Rhino Initiative, or IRI. And through this video, you can see an incredible change in one of the 3 reforestation sites that we have. So you can see just little plantings in 2020, an area that used to be primary forest that's now coming back just 3 years later. You can see what a difference it makes. Again, if we support these efforts and get them started, just like rhinos, they can thrive if we give them the space and security they need. These plants and forest areas, if we plant them and give them a little care, they can really do well on their own. And you can see that in just 3 years. The efforts here are really important because, of course, this provides food and habitat for rhinos and lots of other wildlife. But we also support local community members through this program because we hire farmers groups to grow, plant, and maintain the reforestation areas. Another program that supports Sumatran rhinos is our community development programs. So this is in collaboration with the Indonesian Rhino Initiative and alongside Waikambas National Park. The aim of these programs is to provide a sustainable income for individuals so that we can reduce their need to illegally enter the forest for resources. On the left, you can see a picture of what we call eco-printing, and it's a project that women's groups take on. They utilize fallen leaves from the restoration sites that we just saw, and they use those leaves to make prints on various materials. They can make scarves, t-shirts, all sorts of different things. The products are then sold, and the women gain income from the sale of these products. On the right, you'll see a cassava waste project. That's a machine that takes the waste of the cassava plant, which is a popular food crop in the region, and it converts it into food for livestock. So the waste is chopped up by the machine, then it's fermented, it's then mixed with nutrients, and that's fed to the livestock. So because the livestock are getting food this way, that reduces the need for people to enter the park illegally and graze their livestock on the grasses there. Finally, the Sumatran Rhino Sanctuary is a very special place, again, to help protect Sumatran rhinos. IRF and Yayasan Badak Indonesia and Taman Safari built the Sumatran Rhino Sanctuary in 1996, then a 250-acre facility. And Yabi manages the facility located in Waikambas National Park, and it's home to the only reproductively viable captive Sumatran rhinos in the world. So you can't find Sumatran rhinos in any zoos or anywhere else in a captive facility like this one. So the captive population of these 8 Sumatran rhinos at best represents 11% of the total population of this species, but could be as much as a quarter of the entire population if the lower estimates are accurate. The SRS has produced 3 Sumatran rhino calves, including this one on the left that you can see that was born in March of 2022, and represents our best hope and a blueprint for breeding Sumatran rhinos in captivity and eventually reintroducing them to the wild. And there's nothing like hearing a Sumatran rhino chomp.
Pretty great, Martha.
Sumatran rhinos eat maybe upwards of 100 different plant species. Again, they're really adapted to living in the forest. Pretty amazing animals. And there's never been a more critical time for these species. It's very possible we might have already lost one or both of them had it not been for the vigilant work of so many dedicated organizations, communities, and individuals. And although we experience constant challenges, IRF and our partners are committed to doing everything possible to make sure that these species do not go extinct. And just wanted to give you a big thank you. Again, thank you so much for having us, and happy World Rhino Day.
Thank you so much, Martha. What a cool tour, and some, again, really, really incredible creatures. The baby rhino we deal with a lot of cute animals here at Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants. That might be the cutest single animal in the world, that specific one. So thank you for sharing, and the munching video too. The camera traps, it's really interesting to see, have become such an incredible tool for so many conservation organizations around the globe. And we actually got a question on via email about this. How many camera traps do you have in Indonesia, maybe across the entire rhino? Like, do you have a sense of that? Because it's a lot, I'm sure.
Hundreds at least in Indonesia, just alone, hundreds. So yes, a lot of camera traps. And of course, these camera traps are built to be in really tough locations. This is very hot, very humid, lots and lots of rain. So it's not the easiest place to have technology. So of course, we also need to take the camera traps out and replace them with new ones to make sure that they're all working. And the placement of the camera traps is really important. So these two species, like I said, are very, very secretive, and putting those camera traps in the right place makes all the difference in getting this footage. But yes, we have hundreds and hundreds of camera traps.
Very cool. Ms. McDonald, I'm going to head to you guys in just a second. I want to follow up on something with regards to taking camera traps down, a sort of key element to this work that you feature, which is rangers. So the front line for conservation all around the globe. What does it take? Like, what if we have students today that wanted to become a ranger? How do you do that? Is there a course? Is there a class they should take? What should they do?
Yeah, well, it depends where you live. Of course, in the United States, yes, there are rangers all over our national parks, all over different Forest Service lands and state parks. So there are tons of opportunities. I know we have some folks joining from Canada. I don't know the park system as well there, but I'm sure it has some similarities with the US. Yeah, there are programs that you can go to learn how to be, a naturalist or an educator, a conservationist, where you're talking to people about the different resources that you're helping to protect. The best thing to do is just start volunteering and interning. If you have a state park near you, just start going and seeing what it's like and meeting the staff there.
Yeah, it's quite amazing. I think a lot of students especially feel like people might, react negatively if you ask or are too enthusiastic, and quite the opposite. You've never met people that are more keen to share their passion and enthusiasm and welcome you in than anyone in conservation. I mean, we're looking for more people all the time. Come join us.
Exactly.
Ms. McDonald's class, our South Porcupine crew, if you want to unmute your mic, you are good to go. Come on in. Hey.
Say hi, guys.
Hi, guys.
Hi.
I think Landon has a question.
Ooh, perfect.
Why are rhinos poached?
Poached. Why are they poached? Great microphone setup, by the way. I love your classroom.
Yeah, good question. Unfortunately, they're poached primarily for their horn. This horn is made of keratin, so the same material as your fingernails and your hair. There is a belief, which we don't have any scientific evidence for, but the belief is that the rhino horn could potentially have some medicinal benefits. Again, no evidence of that, but also it's used as a status symbol in many countries in Asia. So carving it into different sort of figures or making it into jewelry and being able to gift that to somebody else sort of has this status symbol. And unfortunately, those are just really entrenched traditions, which are hard to change quickly. And so these horns are cut from the rhinos, unfortunately. And so it's kind of making sure that the rhinos are protected in their habitat, but also looking at why people are consuming this product and trying to change the consumption and the demand for the product as well.
Yep. Which I was actually, this leads perfectly into the next question, which is your education work. I noticed in Vietnam on your list, it was sort of changing those cultural attitudes. And I'm curious how you go about that. It must be partnering with community groups. It must be highlighting that these animals are worth so much more alive than dead. Mm-hmm. Is there anything you can share with us about that work in communities around Asia?
Sure. Yeah. In Vietnam, we support an amazing organization called Education for Nature Vietnam, and they're working with the police there, and they actually monitor social media sites and also markets in Vietnam looking for rhino horn. And so their goal is really to get very high prosecution and arrest rates to make it so that people recognize that if you're involved in this work, which is illegal, obviously, to poach these animals, that there is a big consequence for doing that. So they're trying to kind of make the risk higher and the reward lower for engaging in these activities. In addition to sort of that police and security work and investigation, there are also a lot of behavior change campaigns going on by a number of different organizations they're really focused at changing the conversation around the consumption of rhino horn, but also elephant ivory and pangolin scales, all of these different illegal wildlife products, trying to change the culture around it and show that, yes, these animals are really amazing and they're worth keeping around alive. And we can't have them alive if we're using all of their different parts for our own, our own uses. So yeah, there's some really interesting campaigns, videos, social media campaigns, things in airports all over the place to try and get people to change their perception and their beliefs about these products.
Fantastic. Thanks for the detailed answer, Martha. We got a great question from YouTube. They're specifically talking about one ecosystem, but just broadly speaking, when you bring rhinos into a sanctuary, will they breed in the wild? Do you have proof of concept of this? Do we know that this works? Tell us more.
Okay, if I'm understanding the question correctly, if you bring the animals into a sanctuary, then our hope is that those animals that we bring into the sanctuary are going to breed in the sanctuary, right? So
I guess so, yeah. Like if you're putting animals back into the wild in some fashion, whether it's protected in some way, like if you raise them in captivity and release them, do we know that they'll breed in the wild? Can we prove that that's a positive thing that happens?
Okay, we know that they can breed in the wild when there are certain sort of situations that are set up for them, right? So that's enough food, enough habitat, a secure, protected area where they don't feel, at risk. So we know that because we know of historical populations of these animals and how they've bred and how they've been able to live. Like I showed you on that map, all the way up into India, they had a huge range. So we know they can do well in the wild when we have all of these other components in place. So in addition to bringing animals into these sanctuaries to breed them, because right now the population is so low and the habitat and the populations are so fragmented that they can't come together naturally to breed. So that's where we're intervening with all of these partners and under the government's sort of direction to bring them together so that they can breed. And then when we can get a number of animals in that facility, then we can look at putting them back into the wild. But again, those sort of components have to be in place. The wild has to be protected and the wild has to be big enough to sustain these populations, hence the reforestation programs and all of the protection efforts.
I'm really glad you highlighted all the nuance and things that need to be in place to make this happen, because it's something that we hear a lot from kids and the general public generally, like, oh, we got a bunch of lions in a zoo, we'll put them back out there and they'll be fine. It's like, it's not that easy. It's a very complicated process. And it sort of underscores the fact that it's so much more important to preserve these animals in place and preserve the habitat that they live in where possible. I think kids, media does highlight these big tech flashy solutions. Let's de-extinct something. And it's like, for 1/1000th of the money and time and effort, you could just protect some things in place and, have this future of abundance. And I think that's a really important message for our kids to sort of internalize. So thank you very much for that question, guys. We're going to head back to Miss McDonald's crew, and then we got a couple more on YouTube to wrap up. So if you guys have another query, you can unmute your super awesome mic again and rejoin us. Hi, guys.
Hi, Cara has a question.
Hey.
Cara, you gonna ask? We just need a second.
Oh, take your time.
Cara, what is she was wondering what's the name of the baby, if they give them names.
Great question. Thank you for that.
Really great question. They do give them names. The government of Indonesia, to our knowledge, hasn't released that publicly yet. As soon as that's public knowledge, we will share that. But yes, they do get names, of course. The mother is Rosa, if that helps. And yes, they all have very special names.
The best way to get a huge array of community members excited about your project is to name a baby and just tell everybody. That's like tried and true conservation success for all organizations on Earth.
Yeah.
I'm really curious for people like me who've had the chance to see a rhino in the wild. It's one of the most mesmerizing experiences there is. I'm really curious how ecotourism plays into the work that you do, if it plays into the work that you do, where, again, these animals are valued more for their for being alive than being dead, because they draw so many people in to come witness one of the most amazing animals on Earth. So is there anything you can share about that?
Yes, absolutely. Ecotourism plays a huge role in Africa for the African rhino species and in India and Nepal for the greater one-horn rhino. The Indonesian rhinos are different. While, yes, you could go and plan a trip to the Loser ecosystem and go and see wildlife, because those species the Javan and Sumatran rhinos are so elusive, so secretive. I mean, one of our staff members who's worked with rhinos for decades I think he saw his first rhino maybe 18 years into working in conservation. Um, so
Say
very,
no
very,
more.
very, very hard to see. So ecotourism doesn't play as much of a role in the Indonesian rhinos as it does in the African species and the greater one horns. And of course, with COVID, that was a huge impact to the funding for rhino conservation because all of these places didn't have tourists coming to see the rhinos.
Yeah.
So that has been something that many places are still trying to come back from because bringing people to see the rhinos is a huge way that they raise funds to protect them.
I have a really weird niche question just based on how elusive they are, because one other animal that we featured in these broadcasts before is the eye, which is an insanely elusive lemur. People could be in Madagascar for like a decade, never see an eye. And we had a scientist come on with this really innovative approach where she harvested the leeches from the forest and took their DNA to find out how many eye there were. And they found out that they were everywhere all the time, and there are tons of them. But you could only find that out from their blood that the leeches got to. Again, totally outlandish. It's the only example of a project like that I've ever heard, but I'm curious if there's ever been anything like that other than camera traps to try and get a sense of these creatures that are otherwise cloaked in the forest.
That would be a really fascinating way to try and determine the population of Javan and Sumatran rhinos, because speaking from experience, I've had leeches all over me while I was looking for Javan and Sumatran rhinos. So I know they're out there, and I know that they actually do get on the rhinos, and they can be beneficial to the rhinos, you know, the relationship between leeches and sort of the host animal. Yep. I don't know of any study that's looked at that, but that would be fascinating.
I'll put you in touch with May. She's amazing. Very, very cool. By the way, sorry, I'm so glad that you mentioned that you've had personal experience with leeches, because the one time we've ever had someone talk about them in any great depth, it was in Indonesia, and they recall being totally still in the forest, and you could hear them coming across the forest floor towards you, which has got to be one of the, like, I mean, no matter how you feel about them, like, that is one of the creepiest things ever. Here's all these creatures literally like traversing as quickly as they can to come to suck your blood. That's very...
Yes. The rhino protection units will say, keep moving, do not stop, because as soon as you stop, you will look on the ground and you can start to see, and they move fast. They move really fast. They're very efficient.
We are selling conservation fieldwork
I know.
brilliantly right now, Martha.
It's a great job.
Riot. Time flies and you're having fun. We could talk all day about rhinos, the amazing work that you do. I'm going to, again, pass along to all our registered classes. Your organization is so amazing. It's got a fantastic website that people can find it so much more there, more than any one broadcast could fit in. But is there any final message for classes, live, YouTube, now, after the fact, that you want to share about this work in Indonesia particularly?
I think just thank you so much for tuning in. Really, the thing about rhinos is they're hard to protect, and there are a lot of efforts going on to conserve them. And, you know, if you live in other parts of the world, like the US and Canada, it might feel like this work is really, really far away. So just learning about rhinos, especially these two species that people don't even know exist, and just telling other people about them, tell them what you learned today, go on the website and learn something else about rhinos, you know, their size or things that they like to eat. And spread that awareness to other people so that more people know about Javan and Sumatran rhinos. Another great thing is to go to your local accredited zoo and learn about rhinos there. So many zoos, accredited zoos, support our work. And that's a great way to go see a rhino in person. Like, you're going to meet one, hopefully, at Toronto Zoo, and just develop even more of a love and appreciation for these amazing animals.
Martha, that's such a beautiful answer. I do want to harp on accredited for just one quick second, but it's so important for our kids to know. You can look for AZA in the United States, CAZA in Canada. There's EAZA. AZA of some form around the globe means that that zoo is at the highest standard of animal care. It means they work with conservationists like Martha. It means that they're making sure that that species has a future, which is a totally different kind of animal than roadside zoos, attractions that might mistreat creatures. So look for that certification. It means that your money is going to a really fantastic organization. As you said, we'll be hanging out at the Toronto Zoo in just a few hours. So this has been so much fun. Again, check out that website, rhinos.org. Super easy to find. Classes live and on YouTube. Have a wonderful day, and we'll say a big farewell for now. Martha, stick around.